After years of being under lock and key, the Porsche license is finally free from the dungeon of cash cow arcade racers. Finally, racing fans can get to experience, if only a slither, of what Porsche has to offer when it comes to vehicle dynamics. In this video, we're going to take a look at the Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car as found in iRacing and Assetto Corsa to see which simulator has perhaps done the best job at capturing the fundamentals of this legendary vehicle. Before looking at the differences though, let's talk about the similarities. At first, the tendency for this car to understeer might be a little bit off-putting, but once a driver masters how to use that understeer or load the car up to avoid it, that's where the real joy of this vehicle becomes apparent. The car might not be one of the fastest, but the combination of controllable oversteer with subtle response to driver input makes driving clean laps tricky but immensely satisfying. A large part of the enjoyment that comes from this car is the fact that it seemingly contradicts itself by having both immense amounts of grip, yet a tendency to shuffle around. Despite the car coming to a stop in a timely fashion, it's also the case that a driver has to be very careful and thought out with brake application, and those that are will be greatly rewarded. It's a combination of all those characteristics that make the Porsche 911 perhaps one of the most enjoyable all-round cars, be that in iRacing or Assetto Corsa. Simply put, it's accessible yet demanding. Onto the most notable differences between iRacing and Assetto Corsa when it comes to this car, we'll start with iRacing. The iRacing version has no ABS, so stamping on the brake is fraught with a little bit more danger and more risk of the back end flying out. This can also make trail braking or threshold braking a little bit more tricky. The car has a tendency to follow itself into corners a little bit more, with you able to lean an initial amount of slip and then follow that through with a little bit less difficulty than is found in Assetto Corsa. There's less controllable slip angle, but it's still very controllable and perhaps one of the most controllable cars when it comes to controllable slip in the iRacing simulator. The car's more willing to turn in and slightly less understeery when it comes to corner entry, but mid-corner and on the corner exit the car tends to understeer more and will tend to push wide of the corner, as is characteristic with a lot of cars in iRacing. The force feedback for self-aligning is much stronger and much more aggressive in iRacing than Assetto Corsa. However, there's little to no force feedback for the front end tyre load, making turning in and knowing how much bite you've got on the front end a little bit more ambiguous. And of course, when it comes to partners gonna kill your credits, the iRacing Porsche is a lot more expensive. Taking a look at the car in Assetto Corsa, it has ABS by default, which can be disabled by the driver with up to 11 modes of strength. Even with the ABS off though, the car is a lot more forgiving when it comes to the braking and how much the back end will step out on braking. The car has a far wider controllable slip angle, but a much more aggressive snap when the grip returns. On corner entry, the car is more prone to understeer and a little less willing to actually turn in initially. However, mid-corner and on corner exit, the car has more grip and tends to push out of corners without running as wide as the iRacing counterpart. Though the force feedback is weaker in Assetto Corsa when it comes to the self-aligning forces and certain aspects of the track camber, where the force feedback really excels is the amount of detail in terms of tyre grip, front end grip, as well as letting you know exactly what the tyres are doing at all times. The throttle in the Assetto Corsa version is just slightly less responsive than the one found in iRacing, with the iRacing car feeling just a tiny bit more punchy when you bury the pedal. Finally, when it comes to cost, the Assetto Corsa version requires DLC as well as the base game. That pretty much covers the main points between the two simulators. As I say, in both cases, this is pretty much one of the best all-round vehicles that I've played in a driving simulator, particularly when it comes to online competitive racing. As a result, if you're playing this car in Assetto Corsa, I highly recommend signing up to Sim Racing System, and of course iRacing already comes with its structured online multiplayer. Those of you with an insatiable hunger for versus videos might also want to check out Empty Box's fantastic comparison of this car in iRacing, Automobilista and Assetto Corsa. If you enjoyed our comparison, don't forget to click the subscribe button, like the video and then write a comment ignoring the fact that you're an adult still playing with toy cars. On the screen now you can see a link to our previous versus videos as well as a really nice, very clickable subscribe button. Thanks for watching and goodbye.